Hello everyone and welcome to Janet's Craft Corner. Today we are going to be making the Hello Love round door hanger wall hanger. As with all of our projects, you do need to gather your basic supplies, and while you're doing that, it's a great time to subscribe to our channel. So now let's gather the supplies we need for this project. We have 3 paints, the pink, the red, and the white, as well as our wood cutouts. So let's get started. We're going to start with our pink, as it's the large piece on the background and we want to give that plenty of time to dry. So let's get out some pink paint, and all we're going to do is use a large brush. I think I use a 1-inch brush, and then just paint the background piece, the big round circle of the piece as we go. And if you have a problem with your little holes not being popped out, make sure you pop those out before you start painting. Okay, so let's go. As with all of our pieces, painting from the middle out to the outside edges rather than from the edges into the middle will help to keep your outside edges cleaner, so that you won't have to do as much cleanup when you're finished. Now we'll set that piece aside to dry, and we'll see in a little bit if we need to give it another coat. It's hard to tell right now because it's a little blotchy. Now we still need to do our little heart. That's the only piece of this that is done in the pink, and so I went ahead and did it with my brush. Okay, now let's work on our white pieces, and for the rest of our project we are going to use the sponge method, and most of the time I use my sponges at 1/4 of the sponge size, so I cut each sponge into 1/4 of what it originally starts as. And the reason you use this method is because you get cleaner edges and you don't fill in holes or cover over any engraving marks that you might have on your wood. The way you make this work is make sure that you are offloading most of the paint from your sponge so that it has very little paint on it, and you are using a nice light touch as you work your way down your piece. And finally, we're going to do our red. In this case, because the piece there is so large, I'm going to use a 1/2 of a makeup sponge rather than 1/4 to give myself a little more width in my piece that I'm painting with. So let's get our red out and start in on that using the same technique we used for the white. Now that we have all of our pieces done and they are drying, I'm going to work on the bow, and I'm going to check and see kind of what size, how large I want the bow. I'm thinking about 20 inches, but I want to double check and make sure it's the right size. And then I'm going to cut each of my layers at that 20-inch mark. So there's my bottom layer, the small polka dot one. And then my middle layer is this red. It's a little thinner. I think it's probably 7/8 of an inch. And then my top layer is a pink gingham, and it's even thinner yet. Now, my bottom layer has wire in it, and I really prefer a wired ribbon, but sometimes you can't find wired ribbon in the thinner. And when it's the thinner pieces of ribbon, then it usually works without the wires in it. So we're going to cut all 3 pieces to that 20-inch length. And then we're going to cut a 9-inch length of whatever we want our knot to be. In this case, I want to use my thinnest ribbon for that. So now that we have everything cut, we're going to take, first of all, we're going to start with our knot piece. And we're basically just going to tie a little loop knot in the middle of it. I realize when you're doing this that a 9-inch piece is a little bit long, but it's hard to work with if you use a smaller piece. And now for the rest of our bow, we're going to make a awareness ribbon emblem shape with our bow, and then we're going to tuck the top of it back behind our cross, and that's going to give us our bow shape. And we're going to take our pipe cleaner and take it around our bow, and we're going to just twist it once because we don't want to create a lot of space or volume between the 2 types of ribbon. And we're always going to start with our top ribbon. So there we are, we've got our light, nice little pink ribbon done, and now we're going to repeat the process on the other 2 ribbons. So form our awareness symbol, tuck the back piece underneath, line them all up, get it the size that we want, and then we are going to scrunch our center together. Okay, we want to make it a little bit bigger, it looks like. Now we're going to scrunch our center together and slide it behind the other piece and just wrap that same pipe cleaner around it. And then we're going to repeat the same process on our back ribbon. Once we have all 3 pieces connected, we're going to go through and dovetail our ends. We're going to make each one of them a little shorter than the other, and as you'll see, that means cutting off more of each layer. That's because I did my layers all the same length rather than trying to adjust them beforehand, because I've learned that you don't quite adjust them correctly. The last step in creating our bow is to put the knot on the center. So we're going to use a little bit of hot glue here. The knot is going to cover that center of the pipe cleaner, so we're going to just put a dot of hot glue on the front, not a very big dot at all. It's just to hold it while we're gluing the back, and put our knot where we want it to land. Pull it back a little bit so it holds. I'm then going to trim off a lot of the ribbon on the back side. Now the reason I end up having to trim so much of this ribbon is that the 9-inch piece is about as small as you can get away with in actually tying the knot so that your fingers are in the middle there. But it's way too long, so we'll trim off a lot of it. And then we're going to add, again, we're going to put a little bit of glue on it, and I'm using hot glue, and hot glue goes right through fabric, so I got a finger protector. And now I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the back. I'm going to put a little more than I did on the front because I want it to soak in good and hold it there. Put that first piece down, and then I'm going to pull the other piece across and trim it just a little more. So that it does not stick out around the edge of my bow. And then add a little bit of the hot glue underneath there, pull it across and hold it for a second to let it settle. Now let's clean up, and then we are going to start getting it all placed for final assembly. All we have left to do is actually glue the pieces and add our twine so we can hang it. And now we have a very cute Valentine decoration. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe below.